Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. How are you all today, sisters? Jazakallah khair for joining me. Some of you, if you do, join me early in the morning at 10 a.m. instead of 1 in the afternoon. Anyway, I'm glad that you're here and I'm so ready to get started, inshallah. So most of you should know me from Parenting with Alabama side. So I'm Sarah and I have been a teacher or studied to be a teacher of quite a number of years ago now, inshallah. So since 2004, I've been teaching. So about 18 years now, mashallah. And I've been out in the world of schools for a long time. And then I decided when my daughter was about in year 9 to start homeschooling her, due to some stuff that had happened at school. So I homeschooled her and she's finished her GCSEs, done her IGCSEs actually. And I wanted to share what I did with her and my other students with you guys, because one of the things that is really important with students is to, one of the really important things is to help students understand how they can be better at revision, they can be better at taking exams, they can be better at taking notes, which a lot of students don't really understand. They just kind of go through the motions of going to school, coming home. Yes, they have revision to do. Yes, they've got exams, but they don't really have any kind of structure on how to do that. And schools do give them study sessions and things like that. And I know tutors like myself, we obviously give them advice and help them. But it's a good idea for parents to be aware of all the different things that you can do as parents to help them, or just be aware of what they need to do. So anyway, welcome, and we can just get started because I'm just ready to get started, inshallah. Funny thing is, no one has to introduce me, do they? No one is here to introduce me. So I'm just introducing myself, so I hope that you all know who I am. Just to let you all know, I run Love Learning Online, and obviously I run Parenting with Alabama side as well. But Love Learning Online is basically, we offer lessons, mainly me at the moment, and we offer lessons. We teach students how to go from confused to confident in their exams, inshallah, and we empower them to take exams so they don't feel stressed out and worried. One of the reasons that I'm doing this session today is because one of the mothers that came to the conference, and she messaged me. In fact, I've got two mothers that messaged me recently about exams, but the one that I want to talk about was just feeling really overwhelmed, and she just thought, I don't know what to do. She's in year 9 now. I know that she has to do exams in a couple of years, and what do I do? Where do I go from here? I didn't have a clue. So to help her, I actually went through, how to do an exam in a private centre, how to register your child in an exam, how to understand what a syllabus is, and how to use that to help you, to help your child to study, and so on. There was another mother that was worried that, the grade boundaries, she said, the grade boundaries are really high in January. Did I make a mistake by registering my son for the January exams? I should have done June. Now, things like grade boundaries and the UMS marks and things like that, students and parents do get quite hung up on. And I just want to say from the beginning that at the end of the day, we're Muslims, and we believe that whatever the child was going to get, they were going to get, right? So what we need to do is we need to tie our camels, and we need to tie our camels, and we need to be confident that, inshallah, we are doing the best that we can for our child with the resources that we have, with the time that we have, with the information that we had. And inshallah, our children will be successful, because at the end of the day, all the children that are in this world with their mothers' du'as behind them, as we heard so lovely from the conference, was that inshallah they will be successful. And it's just a case of what you define that success to be. And we will talk about that in another session. But today, I'm sure that you guys want to know what are the exact tools that they need to be successful at taking exams. So when you take an exam, you go into that room, you are stressed out. I'm sure that if some of you have taken exams before, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. The student is stressed. They're feeling like there's a lot of pressure on me. I need to do really well in this exam. Did I revise enough? Did I study enough? And they're going into that exam, and some of them, their anxiety levels are super high. So our job as parents is to go in there and let them know that you've done the best that you can. Right? Again, you've tied your camel, you've done your best. Don't worry about it. Our du'as are with you, and you just do the best that you can. Make sure that they feel or they understand that you are going to be happy regardless. Whatever the outcome is, whether they pass, fail, anything, regardless, we are happy with the outcome. One of the points I want to mention here is that one of the exams that my daughter did last year, it was the one she was the least worried about. She revised the least for it. It was the one that she kind of thought, you know what, I'm just going to take this exam. And subhanAllah, she got the best grade at that one, right? So it shows there's a correlation between how nervous you are and how you end up doing the exam. So one of the first things that we need to do is give them this tool of being confident in the exam. Right? One of the other things that I always tell them to do is to go into the exam knowing what is going to be on the paper. Now, we obviously don't know what's going to be on the questions. We don't know what questions they're going to ask. But if they've never seen an exam paper before, if they've never tried a past paper, if they've never research the kind of questions that can come up, that can be worrying to a child, right? So as a good teacher or a good tutor will tell you that we need to go into the exam knowing what's going to come up. So what kind of questions will come up? Again, every year there are YouTube videos that come out. There's websites with people putting their predictions on and so on. And again, with my daughter, she had some poems to remember for the English exam. Okay. And she realized that, hey, hang on, I can't remember how many there were. I think there were 10 in or 12. And she said, hang on, these two were in this paper, these two were in that paper, these two are in that paper. They've only got 4 left to choose. So she actually focused on those 4. And then when it came to the exam, she was like, oh my God, Mom, 2 out of those 4 came. She focused on them. I'm not saying she didn't study the others, she did. However, her focus was on the ones that she predicted would come up. And again, usually they do follow some kind of pattern. So you are able to figure that out, inshallah. So make sure that they're informed, make sure they've practiced past papers lots of times, make sure they have a syllabus, an entire syllabus of every single subject that they're going to take, inshallah. Because again, having the syllabus, it just reminds you of little kind of points that they need to know. For example, they need to know the difference between a contact force and a non-contact force. Now, you might have taught them forces. You might have gone through all the different types of forces. You might have told them that this one is acting in this direction or that direction. And you've done a lot of the complicated stuff. But then one of the children may have missed that one point about what's a contact force or a non-contact force, right? So in terms of that, it's important to just go through the entire syllabus to make sure that they can access every single question in the exam, inshallah, right? So there's so many more, obviously, tools and techniques that I give them, but these are just kind of, I just want to give you a basic idea. I've noticed that I've already talked for 10 minutes and I've only done 1 point, so I need to move on, but inshallah, hopefully that gives you a good idea. So the next idea is the best way to take notes so they can be memorized and recalled at will. Okay, so the best way to take notes. First of all, I see a lot of students either copying things that the teacher's written on the board, just literally just copying whatever the teacher writes, they just copy, right? Which is fine. And I know teachers have this thing that, oh, as long as they're writing something, it looks like they've done some work and their copybooks are full of work. And yeah, that must be really good, right? Okay. I know students feel like I've got so many notes and they feel kind of empowered and confident and they feel like, yep, I've got all these notes, right? The point is what to do with those notes. How can you use those notes to do a good job in your exam, right? So we need to do a good job in the exam. That's the goal. The taking notes, making the notes look beautiful, which a lot of the girls usually like to do, is good. It's not bad, but it's a case of like, what's more important, writing beautiful, neat notes or learning that information so that you can take the exam, right? We need to talk about memorization, because a lot of the time in the British curriculum the questions are not about memorization. They're about application. They're about analysis. They're about using that information to create something new, which is called synthesis, right? So these are the things that the British curriculum would like to test them on, right? But there are certain things that they need to memorize. So for example, they need to memorize the order of the rainbow. Okay, so I tell them Roy G. Biv, right? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. I learned that maybe 20, 30 years ago, and I still know it because it's just a simple mnemonic that's made from the first letter of each color. A simple mnemonic. So whenever they have to learn something, and again, I'm going to go back to the idea of, for example, writing an essay or writing out a scientific experiment or writing out how to design and make something in like technology or textiles or something, the same idea. Every single one of these has to go through a process, right? So in science, we call it the scientific method. In technology, they call it the design process. In English, they call it essay writing. So there's a process, there's a procedure that they have to follow. So again, if you give them the technique to understand what that procedure is, so they can have in their mind, okay, I've got to write down an aim, then I've got to write down a prediction, then I've got to justify it, then I've got to create a method. In my method, I've got to do the step-by-step way on how to do it, plus I've got to put a diagram. So all of these things that they have to understand, sorry, my hand's blurred, isn't it? All of these things that they have to understand is really important for them so that they can actually go step by step and answer each part in an exam question. So some of these exam questions in exams are 6 marks in biology. Sometimes they're about 5 or 6 marks in physics and chemistry as well. So there's a lot of marks there that they could get just by knowing the order. And if they know the order off by heart, it means that they can answer those questions a lot more easily, right? And again, when you want to recall something, I'm sure you guys have noticed that sometimes you're sitting there and you remember you're thinking about something and you're like, oh God, what is that? What's that thing? Oh, I remember it began with a, right? Okay, this is what you don't want children to do in exams. In the exams, they've got a limited time. We want them to kind of automatically know what to do. We want them to be on autopilot, right? So we want them to be like, oh yeah, this is the electromagnetic spectrum. This is this. Like that, we want them to be like automatic. So the recall aspect of it is important, because what happens is, and this will happen to you guys as well, if I just give you one example right now of yourselves, and I ask you, what did you eat for dinner yesterday? Right? Have you thought about what you ate for dinner? Is anyone here, by the way? And no one's commenting today. But yeah, can you remember what you ate for dinner yesterday? Right? Most likely, most people will be able to remember what they ate for dinner yesterday. But if I asked you, what did you eat for dinner last Wednesday? Okay, now it's going to be a bit more difficult, unless something really different happened. For example, you made your favorite meal instead of your kid's favorite meal, which was another thing I was talking about the other day. You're probably not going to remember unless you go back and then you go, right, well, on Monday we had this, on Tuesday we had that. So it's one of those bits of information that isn't really that important. So it's in your thank you. So it's in your memory, but it's something that's not important. You don't need to recall it. However, if you recall what you had yesterday, and then I asked you next week, what did you have for dinner on Wednesday? Because you've already thought about it and you've put it in a different part of your memory. Now you're going to be like, oh yeah, I had whatever. Okay, let's just say it was roast chicken, whatever it was. So now that I've made you remember what you had yesterday, if I ask you next week, inshallah, you will remember, because you were like, oh yeah, she asked me last week. I remember I said roast chicken. Yes, it must be roast chicken. So what you're doing is you're taking the information from your short-term memory, you're taking it from the information that your memory usually discards at the end of every day, and you're like, wait, I need that information, I'm going to keep it for tomorrow, and so on, right? There is a graph that I wanted to draw, but since I don't have Zoom and the ability to draw on the screen, I'm not going to draw it. But if you just imagine a graph with a y-axis and a x-axis and how much they recall, and what happens is that the curve goes down like that. Okay, so they remember a lot on the first day that you teach them, and then the recall of the information goes right the way down. So we have to keep on reminding them. So again, when they do lessons with myself, for example, at the beginning, I'll remind them of what happened last lesson, what we talked about last lesson. Again, with a few homeschoolers that I've spoken to, they kind of say to me, well, they've forgotten. I've done something yesterday, and then the next day they come back and they've forgotten. You know, they're children, they forget. We're adults, we forget too. Children do forget, and they will forget, but that's okay. It doesn't mean they haven't understood. You've got to remind them, you've got to give them something to hook that information on, right? So for example, when I was teaching momentum, and I would explain to them that, look, if there's a big child like you, and then you've got a little brother or sister or your cousin, and they're running towards you and you're running towards them, who's going to fall over, right? Okay, so it gives them a little picture in their mind, and they're imagining themselves, they're imagining their little baby sister or cousin or whoever it is, and they can imagine that in their mind. So every time I talk about it, I bring up the same example. Or one of the other examples that I use about power is me and my sister buying the same blender. Hers was a lot cheaper than mine. Then we found out that hers was less powerful, so it took longer to do the work. Now, in terms of that, the children kind of get the idea. They go, oh yeah, your sister and a blender, like they remember something about it, right? So remembering, hooking that information on something so that they can then recall it later on, that's really important. And honestly, sisters, I mean, I'm sure you know, when you tell them to get ready or we're going out or something's happening, the kids do forget. You know, they're children, they're going to forget. So we've got to give them ideas on how to bring that information back to the front so that they can then do well, inshallah. Okay, so when my students take exams, I give them a lot of oh, sorry, did I mention the notes? I didn't mention this, sorry. So with the notes, I mentioned that we have to repeat and go over stuff. I mentioned that we have to make sure that we use examples that will help us to recall that information. And one thing that I didn't mention was the pictures, right? So I'm sure you've heard of the idea that pictures are better than 1,000 words, right? Okay, so the more pictures you have, the more diagrams you have, the better for them. Okay, sorry, I didn't mention that. But anyway, let's move on to the next one. So the methods that my students use to pass their exams. Now, first of all, I told you at the beginning that going into an exam, children are usually really nervous. So the more that we can do to help them to calm their nerves and calm them down before the exam, the better, right? So we do stress relief exercises. Last year I had a lovely sister on, Hafsa. She explained how to relax, and we did a bit of tapping before exams and things like that. We shared lots of du'as that they can read to calm themselves down. So as most of my students are Muslim, I do share a lot of this. Obviously, if there's a non-Muslim, I would give them their own, I'd guide them towards something that they can do of their own faith. But in terms of being prepared for an exam, most children think that we've got to cram last minute, and I guess I'm going to overlap here a little bit. Okay, so they think that we've got to sit up or late at night and I've got to be studying, because that's what they've seen people do. They see their friends who are like, oh, I'm studying, and they feel like, okay, yeah, that's the way, that's what I've got to do as well, right? But cramming at the last minute, they're going to forget at least 70% of the stuff that they've tried to cram into their brains. And the stuff that is in their minds will probably be really jumbled up. So one of the first things is to stay calm and confident and to start revising really, really early on. So one of the first things they need to do is create a study schedule. They need to decide when they're going to study, what their study times are, and surprisingly, they've got to decide when their breaks are. They've got to decide when they're going to let their mind just relax. And again, a lot of us that are in the business world, we kind of get this, we kind of post this on Facebook from time to time, but people say, why do you get your best ideas in the shower? Right? So when you're in the shower, you're relaxing, your mind is basically switched off, right? Now, can I explain this to you in terms of psychology and science, but there's a little part just before your brain thinks of that idea where your brain is completely devoid of anything, like there's nothing in there right now, right? And at that moment you get this flash of inspiration. So you're in the shower and you're like, whoa, that's such a good idea, right? Or have you ever, like I said earlier, tried to remember something and you're like forcing your brain, you're like, what is that guy's name? He was in that film. I remember he sang that song. I remember he was like this, but you just can't remember the person's name. And then you're in the shower or you're just washing up or you're doing something really random and all of a sudden the name pops into your head, right? This is kind of like that. So what we're doing is we're giving the children time to just relax and just do nothing, right? They might be watching Netflix. They might be outside, gone for a walk. They might have gone for a swim or play football or, whatever they prefer to do. But whatever it is, we're just giving their brain time to relax and absorb as much information as possible. Okay, so this is really important, to be confident about what's coming on the exam and to have a proper study schedule so you're not cramming at the last minute, and be ready for what's going to come up, inshallah. One of the things that they don't teach for some reason anymore is reading the questions before the exam. So again, going back to this shower idea, when you're sitting in that exam and you're sitting there and you're going, oh God, what are the two variations of this chemical that I have to draw? What are the two isomers? I remember this one was like this, but what's the other one? What's the other one, right? Okay, and you can't remember it, but you're forcing yourself because you're like, I've just got a few minutes left and I need to remember that other one, right? So you got to think to yourself, okay, I need to now focus and remember it. There's nothing else to do in the exam. I've done all the other questions and there's just this one question that's really doing my head in, right? To try to avoid that situation, what I get them all to do is I get them to sit down and I say, look, when you sit down, first thing you do, leave your pens on the table, don't even pick them up, and just read the paper. And like I said earlier, years ago, we used to give them reading time. Sometimes they don't give that anymore. So reading, you're just literally reading every question, turn it over. That does two things, okay? So one, what it does is it calms you down, because remember, when we're going into something that's unknown, we're going to be more stressed out. When we're going into something that we know, it's going to calm us down, inshallah, right? So we're going to get more stressed out if we don't know what's going on, yeah? So in terms of this, we're going to read the paper so we know what questions are going to come up. So we're going to be like, oh, thank God they didn't ask me about isomers, for example, right? Or, oh, thank God there's no graphs on this paper. Whatever it is that the child will be thankful for, because they can't test everything on the paper. So they're going to be happy that there's either one or two subjects or topics that weren't on the paper, right? So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, what happens is your mind already starts working. So as soon as you're doing that paper, your mind is working. Your mind is like, oh, right, there's a question coming up about, and again, I say this, but then actually, to be honest with you, it's more of a subconscious thing, so that when you get to that question, your mind has already done some of the sorting for you, some of the solving. Some of that subconscious mind is already working. So when you get to the question, you're like, oh yeah, I know what to do. And it's kind of automatic, and I can't really explain it, to be honest with you, as a step-by-step method. But just the fact that I've done it so many millions of times, and I know my students have done it, and they've come back and told me, and they've said, oh my God, you're so right, because your mind works behind the scenes. And we all know that, don't we? Because we've got your conscious mind at the front and your subconscious. I say it's at the front and the back, right? When you've got something at the back of your mind, there's something that's always at the back of your mind working hard, right? And that's the part of your mind that figures out the answer to some problems, right? I hope I haven't frozen. It's just told me that my internet's quite bad. Welcome, Salam sisters. Thank you so much for joining from Facebook. Please write your names because I don't know who's here, but thank you so much for joining me. And thank you for joining this webinar. So I do feel like I'm talking a lot. I think it's because normally I have a guest here with me and it's a bit of a chit chat, but it's just me today. So I hope that what you can do, obviously, is pause and give yourself a little breather, have a cup of tea, and then come back to this if you want to. No problem at all. So one of the things that I said was read the entire paper. Practice loads of exam questions. Literally all of my lessons are full of exam questions, past exam questions. And I go over them with the students like over and over again. So they might have it in one topic. There'll be a question about just on those topics. In one lesson, there will be exam questions just on the topics that we do in that lesson. So it will be a lesson on electrolysis, and we just do loads of questions all on electrolysis. Again, what that does is it allows them to practice all the different types of electrolysis questions. And I remember when I realized that this was a really good trick was back in 2010 or 11, there were some of my students were doing the CIE exams. And I remembered that they had a quiz to do, and I'd just chosen, like I did, some questions only on electrolysis. I don't know why I did it that way that time, but I remember they were asking the same exact question, but they just had a different way of asking the question. It was even the same chemicals, and some of the students would get the question completely correct, and some of them would get one right and one wrong. And I was so puzzled because I was like, it's asking you about the same chemical. How did you get it wrong? But just the way that sometimes the question is written, students do tend to get confused. So it's a good idea to do the same question or the same topic, different questions, to get them used to the idea of doing these questions all on the same topic, because it will help them to see, oh, they could ask me like this, or they could ask me like that. Like sometimes, for example, they tell you to name the salts. Sometimes they'll tell you to name the chemicals that you put in at the beginning, right? The reactants for the question. And sometimes they ask you for the products, and so on. So if they've only been ever studying how to figure out the products, when it comes to the reactants, they're going to be like, wait, what? How do you figure that out? No, wait, I don't know. So we've got to practice kind of like forwards, backwards, upside down, as many ways as possible, so that when it comes to the exam, like I said, they are so ready for it, inshallah. Okay, so like I said, I do have lessons for IGCSE, for A level, for science, inshallah, for maths, and we also have Arabic, Key Stage 3 and GCSE. So please do let me know if you'd like any of those lessons. I work with teachers that have English and other subjects as well, ICT, English, French. Okay, so if you need any of these, please do let me know, and I'm sure that we can help you, inshallah. I already talked a little bit about why cramming last minute is not the best idea. So again, going back to my life. So when I was doing my A levels, I remember being really stressed out about a particular exam in chemistry because I just felt that I wasn't ready for it. So I remember one of my teachers had said to me, what are you going to do, or something like that later on. And I said, well, sir, like, what kind of a question is that? Clearly I'm going to revise, there's an exam tomorrow. And he was like, well, actually, you know what, I told my son that at the end of the day, once you have revised and once you have focused and there's nothing past what you can do, just go for a walk. Just go out, empty your head, clear your head, get a good night's sleep. Everyone says get a good night's sleep. No one really does it because they think, oh no, I need to cram. I need to drink loads of coffee or Red Bull or some other liquid to keep myself stimulated and awake so that I can stay awake all night long. So clearly we know that's not the best idea. However, we do sometimes let our children kind of push us to that direction, and we let them say, okay, fine, yeah, I get it, you probably do need to work on this or whatever. Personally speaking, although I've been honest with you guys a lot, I'm not a morning person at all, but personally speaking, I do sleep and then I'll wake up early in the morning, right? So what that does is it makes sure that you've got your sleep and then you've got like a limited time in the morning to go over your last minute notes and things like that. If you use flashcards or those little index cards with your notes on them, you know, it's very easy to quickly flick through, you know, while you're lining up to go into the exam room and so on, right? It's very easy to, if you've got like an A4 page, one of the worksheets that I'm going to send to you, so I'll talk about that in a bit, but it's about how to draw a really good mind map. If you've got all the information on one page, it just gives you like a clear overview that you can just kind of try to photograph in your mind before you get to the exam, right? I don't know if you've ever seen people kind of like go like that and they're kind of pointing up there. I don't know if they are, but I used to kind of go like look in the air somewhere and I'm pointing to the right because I know that on the paper it was on the right side, just above where it said the force equation. There was something right there. Oh yeah, right, that's it, right? Okay, so you can kind of remember and visualize where the information is. Okay, but cramming in the last minute, it just shows that you're unprepared, that you're not ready for the exam, that you've left everything till the last minute and you're just stressing now and you're panicking, right? So we want to avoid all of that. So we're going to start right from the beginning. And how we're going to start right from the beginning? We're going to stay calm and confident, right? Because we want to give it our best shot. So right now we're in December, mashallah, right? Those of you that are doing exams in June, or your children that are doing exams in June, inshallah, you've got around 5.5 months, right, to prepare. What are you doing right now to achieve that goal, right? It's very difficult, I think, for students and for parents sometimes to visualize how they're going to feel the day before a real exam, right? Because yes, we do mocks and we have tests and we have quizzes and so on, but that feeling of, oh God, it's actually exam day, because this one is kind of like you do it and you pass and you don't do it and you might not pass, kind of a feeling, right? Whereas with all the other exams, there's always kind of a chance for a redo or a retake. Okay, so there's a little bit different feeling. However, because you've planned and you've made a really good revision schedule, that's the first thing that we're going to learn to do. So when you sign up for these emails, which I'm going to talk about in 1 second, I'm going to send you a set of emails, okay? And each email will have a short video, a very short video. It's not going to be 35 minutes like this one. I don't know how long this one's going to be, but I'll try to finish it soon, inshallah. You'll get a short video and explaining how to do the thing, and then you'll get a template, inshallah, for that method. So for example, if I'm showing you a mind map, I'll give you a short video on how to fill in the mind map. For the schedule, there's a short video explaining how to do the schedule and how to fill in the template for the schedule, right? And again, it's taking into account that we have got time right now. If I was doing this in Easter, for example, in about March time, that's way closer to the exams. So we're taking into account that we've got around 5 months now to really plan our revision. We're going to plan what day we're going to go through which subject, right? And you're going to divide up your syllabus. I'll show you how to divide it up. I'll show you how to section it all off and decide how you're going to revise. And you're only going to do it for 1 hour a day. That's it, right? Okay, now, one of the most amazing things that I realized, and that was only this year, was by actually Coach Yusra. So I used to tell her that I don't have an hour a day to go and do exercise, right? As a busy mom, you don't have an hour a day. So she would say, we'll just take movement breaks, movement snacks, she calls them. So what we have to do is take a snack whenever we can. So most of us relate it to Salah time, right? So after your Salah, do like 2 minutes worth of push-ups or 2 minutes worth of step up, step down, and so on, right? I hope I'm not revealing all your secrets, Yusra. But anyway, my point is that taking an hour a day sometimes to say, right, it's going to be from 6 till 7 p.m. It might not be easy to do, right? But if you can figure out 3 20-minute places as a student or as a parent, if you help them, figure out 3 places where they might have 20 minutes to go over one topic, right? Those 20 minutes are going to add up, just like how people say, save the pennies and the pounds will look after themselves. Same kind of idea. So each of those 20 minutes a day, or 10 minutes, even if you have 10 minutes, right? I wouldn't say less than that, because in order to learn something, I think you do need to spend at least 10-15 minutes on it. But if it's just something of revision or something that you need to read or a quick video that you can watch, right? You can do that in 10 minutes. So you can figure out a time that you can do this, or you can actually just say, right, in this day, I need to get this 1 hour worth of revision done. And you work out. So when we do our schedule, we work out what are the 3 things you're going to learn for that day, right? The 3 20-minute tasks or the 6 10-minute tasks. You'll figure it out. Again, like I said, I'll show you in the worksheet. You figure it out how to divide that up, but you're basically going to just do that one bit. And again, when kids are doing hifz or whenever they have to memorize anything, this is going to come really in useful. And I do apologize because I'm kind of talking to the child and talking to the parent at the same time. So if you want parents, you can show your child this video, although sometimes I'm talking to the parents and sometimes I'm talking to the child. I do apologize. I keep reverting back to the talking to the child because that's what I'm used to doing. So I apologize. But as a parent, you can help them to figure out which steps they need to take, inshallah, and how to divide up that information, right? Okay. Why I'm saying all of this and why they're making a schedule, why they're learning how to do mind maps, why are they going to learn how to do the mnemonics, how to sit and revise, and how to prioritize which thing to revise first and why, right? So these are the things that they're going to learn over the next few days, inshallah. But why are we doing all of this? Because we want them to stay calm and confident during their exams. Right, so all of these little things that they're going to learn over the next 5 or 6 days, and it's holidays and they've got time, right? Okay, so they're not stressed out, they don't have school, they don't have all these extra lessons and things to go to. So they've got some time now to actually figure out a plan, right? And we all know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best of planners, but we have to tie our camel and be prepared. Right? So we are going to make dua. We are definitely going to pray, but we are also going to tie our camel. We're going to be prepared. again, I'll go back to a story of my childhood when I was actually not actually a child, but you know, I was about 16, 17, and I remember my uncle was at university, and he told me that he had this exam to do, and he said, "Oh, you know what I was doing before the exam? I was reading Quran." He was reading Surah Yasin. And I said to him, "Okay, good, that's good, mashallah." You know, and he said, "Yep." It was like I was reading the surah and I was prepared for that exam and I did really well in it. And I said, "Oh, that's brilliant, mashallah, well done." And for some reason, something clicked in my mind and I was like, "Okay, so if I read Quran, I'm going to do well in my exams." Not realizing the link between, wait, hang on, you need to learn the stuff first and then do your Quran. So I think for maybe a few days, I was really focused on making sure that I would just read my Quran, like, and then that's going to make me pass. Well, sure, it is, inshallah, definitely going to help. Never ever doubt that. But we've got to actually do the work first, right? And I know that sounds silly, and I was 16 and I should be more clever than that. But sometimes kids take things literally, and I think that's what I did. And it took me a few days to figure out, wait, hang on, he said revise first, then do the Quran, right? Because you still got to do it. You still got to tie your camel. You still got to be prepared, right? As a mother, we know that our du'as are answered. Coach Rukshanara did a beautiful seminar a couple of weeks ago in our conference, which was all about the power of the mother's du'as. So whatever we pray for, inshallah, for them, inshallah, it will come true, right? So we just want them to be prepared. We want them to stay calm and confident during exams so they can give it their best shot. We want them to have the exact tools that they need to be successful at taking exams, right? So I hope that you guys have learned something new today. Did you learn anything new? Let me know, please, in the comments. Do let me know if you learned anything new. If you're watching on replay, please do hashtag replay. And definitely sign up for these 7 templates and worksheets to help your kids take exams. So the link is in the description box on YouTube, and it should be in the events tab on Facebook. And if it isn't, just send me a message, let me know, and I'll send it to you, inshallah. So you can sign up, get these worksheets, these templates. Basically, they're not worksheets. So get the templates from me, and basically help your child, just empower your child to take those exams, to not be so stressed out about them, to start thinking creatively, right? To start thinking that we've got a different world coming up, right? Compared to the one that we were brought up in. I mean, could you even imagine the fact that I would be sitting here, 3,000 miles away from most of you that are in the UK, and I don't know how many thousand miles away from those of you that are in the US and further away, right? How far we are from each other, but I'm able to communicate with you like literally instantly, and you can see me. It's not even just a phone call, right? I don't think that we could have imagined that. So if we can't imagine that, I think that we need to realize that this world is going to change, right? It's going to change for us, for our children. So we're going to give them these skills that are at the moment going to help them take these exams. But what happens if they take these skills onto further life, right? Knowing how to plan and schedule things. And a lot of students say to me, "Oh, I'll never need to use Pythagoras again," or "I'll never need to use fractions again. Why do we have to learn it?" A lot of people say that. But when you're cooking, you're multiplying, dividing all the time, right? When you're at the shops, when you're doing your budgeting, there's so many places that you're going to use these skills that we're teaching them. And this particular skill is not taught, right? No one teaches you. There's no school class that is how to take exams, yeah, or how to revise effectively, or how to be productive when you're trying to revise. There's no class that does this. There is a class with me if they would like to take it, but I've decided this year that I'm going to do it that I'm going to do it through the videos. And it's a free class, don't worry, there's no payment here. This is just helping students to be ready for the exams. And if they want to do it in more detail, of course, you can book some time with me and I can go through and we can develop a plan just for your child. I can help them do that as well. But these skills are going to help them in further life. So for example, just to finish off quickly, again, as you all know, I'm in Qatar at the moment and the World Cup was going on. And a few months ago, my husband said to me, do you want to go to any of the matches? And I actually said, no, I'm all right, thanks. I don't want to go to any of the matches. I knew it's going to be busy. I know one of my kids that's anxiety prone isn't going to like it. And I just kind of had the idea that it's just going to be really, like, I'll be honest, stressful for me and the kids. Okay. But I'm not normally like that. I'm normally quite adventurous and I'll do this and I'll do that and I'll take them here and take them there and so on. But for this time, I was actually like, you know what, I'm okay. And I feel like that forward planning of like the last 3 or 4 months helped me in these couple of weeks or 4 or 5 weeks. I had planned for them to do things in the house, like, you know, outside the house, in the house, stuff that they want to go, where to go, what to do. On the days when there were no matches, we ended up going out and things like that, right? And the reason I say that is because I was on a few WhatsApp groups and people were like, okay, what are you doing today? Where are you going today? What's happening today? Has anyone got tickets? They were asking for tickets for like the semi-finals, the quarterfinals, the finals, right? And my mind went to that if you want to do something, you should plan ahead. If the people that had planned ahead and said, right, I'm going to this match, this match, this match, they'd bought their tickets for whatever £1,000 or £100 or whatever it was. I don't even know the prices, to be honest. But they'd bought their tickets and they were just sitting relaxing. And the people that hadn't were literally running around trying to get tickets for these particular matches, right? Now, one of the reasons was obviously they didn't know which teams would get into these matches. I know that. But on the other hand, they ended up paying like 2 or 3 times as much as what the ticket was worth. And that started making me think that it's just like our students. It's just like the fact that when you study for 1 hour a day or 20 minutes a day or whatever time that they put aside a day, all of that time is going to add up so that when they can get to the exams, they're going to be ready for it, right? And they're going to be like, yeah, that's it, I'm doing the exam. Whereas the other students are going to be running around doing all these other things. And then when it comes to the exam, they're going to be like, oh God, I need a mind map. Oh, I need a template. Oh, I need some revision cards and so on. Yeah. So that's the difference that I feel. I don't know if I really explained that really well, but I hope I did. And the same thing that happens on Eid here. I don't know, because I haven't been in the UK for Eid, for that many Eids. I don't really know if it happens in England as well, but I'm sure it must do, that the places, the restaurants get booked up, the hotels, the outings, the bowling and so on, right? Oh, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Mrs. Matala. Jazakallah khair for your amazing comment. I'm going to display it. I'm so happy. Thank you. Always, if I help one person, that's what I love. But I don't know if this happens to you guys over Eid, but here everything gets booked up and then the only things that are available are super expensive. So again, for Eid, I will plan sort of 3 to 4 months in advance. I'll speak to my husband and I'll say, what do you think? What do you want to do? And then I'll go looking for whatever restaurant we want to go to or whatever area, whatever it is. And we'll plan it a few months in advance so that when it comes to Eid, inshallah, we're not paying overpriced. We're not, stressing out about what to do and where to go. I say that, and I'm just remembering actually last year there was a bit of a last minute plan, but that's because I was brand new to the country. I had no idea what was going on. But subhanallah, planning and organizing comes in useful everywhere in your whole life, right? And I'm sure that you sisters know, if you're planning a dinner party, if you're planning a wedding, if you're planning anything, right? So all of these things that they use, all of these skills that they get to use, inshallah, will be so important for later on, inshallah. So like I said, please do sign up for these 7 templates to help your kids take exams. So the link is here in the chat. It's also in the description box, and it is also on Facebook where in the events tab. Okay, and like I said, I'll post it again just in case people don't have it, and I'll post it in the WhatsApp group as well. If you are on the WhatsApp group, welcome. If you're not, I'll send you a link. You can still join the WhatsApp group, inshallah. So I'll just quickly grab the link for you all, and then I will let you all go. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for coming along today. I really appreciate all of you listening to me babble on for almost an hour. But I hope that whatever I gave, the information that I gave, was useful to you. Because like I said, when I get worried messages from parents, I know that they just need someone to kind of say, it's okay, don't worry, everything's going to be fine. And it is, inshallah, because we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always by our side. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for listening. Please do #replay, sign up to the WhatsApp chat, and sign up to the templates. All right, take care. Assalamu alaikum, sisters.